creating the impression that they are providing jobs for the youth. This week, what has triggered this conversation again is a statement by the finance minister. He was very blunt. And we have known this for some months now, that it is not as easy as many would want to wish. But the finance minister is sending a strong signal that, look, the government sector is virtually choked. It can no more absorb what you would describe as opportunities for the younger ones coming up. It is choked. 650,000 people are feeding on about 60% of all the revenues that we are generating. And government says enough is enough. But the question is the economy strong enough to be able to create the other opportunities? As we always hear, the private sector is the engine of growth. And so we are asking, do we even understand what we want to talk about if we talk about unemployment? Because we don't have any reliable data. The Ghana Statistical Service makes the attempt every time. So even as we speak, we know that the latest population and housing census will try to give us a mental picture about the situation on the ground, which we know already. But the fact is, if you go to the Ghana Statistical Service's data site, you will not get accurate information because most of the sources of other information about employment or unemployment are not up to date. You can talk about the Labor Department, you can look at the GES, the Ghana Health Service, you want to look at the Association of Ghana Industries, National Board for Small Scale Industries, you can look at Ghana Employers Association's website. And when you go there, the information there is not enough. Even when you go to the World Bank site, some of the data they put there may not be satisfactory enough for us to digest. So this evening, we want to reflect on what the finance minister said recently. And I want to tie this to some worrying report we are picking from the Bloomberg website. And this is one of the credible sources of information or news about economies around the world. And so while I wait to introduce my guest, an interesting young man who has done a lot of research, I'll read a little about what he has been doing, and then we delve into our conversation tonight. So let's listen to the finance minister now. Reflect on it. When we come back, I'll tell you more about today's program.
So the future for you with regards to jobs, of course, is the most important thing at this stage. We have gone through a period where most people look for jobs with government, etc. That payroll is full. I can tell you that because we are spending some 60% of our revenue on remunerating some 650,000 people, and that's not sustainable. The question then really is whether UPSA has trained you to be entrepreneurs. And your question will be, where will I get the financing from, etc. But you do and you have the skill set to be able to do what you have to do. Our responsibility as government is to create an environment of macro stability, currency stability, and ensure that you have access to the relevant skills and financing. So this budget that we are going to be doing is going to really focus on the youth and budget. And tomorrow we have a program here looking at what the youth demands and how we can structure the next 2-3 years of the Ghana Obatampa program to ensure that you become your own bosses and you become entrepreneurs. So it's a new world out there where you need to, it's not a factory that is employing 10,000 people, but it's individuals like you employing 2, 3, 4, 5 people to create that energy and engine for our country to transform.
So that was Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, and all of us know where he spoke at one of the tertiary institutions here in Accra, UPSA, and he was blunt. We've had lots of reactions. The Trades Union Congress, for example, has spoken to the issue. We'll be delving into that. But tonight, the topic is no job syndrome, exploring the nexus. That's how we chose to summarize this. I'll be doing this conversation with Dr. Julius Kweku Qatar. Many of you may have heard the name because we know him to be one of the respected consultants. And let me share a little with you for those of you who may be seeing him for the first time. Dr. Julius Kweku Qatar is a Ghanaian. He holds postgraduate doctorate in economics, PhD in international economics, MSc in international economics, BA in economics, and diploma in youth development. And I find this very exciting. He obtained his qualifications from educational institutions in the US, India, and Ghana. And if you go down into his profile, he is an educationist, a trainer, training facilitator, management consultant, and a lecturer. And his main areas of expertise are in international economics, fiscal policy, labor economics, training and development, with focus on employment and labor-related issues. He's a lecturer at ICDE College of Education, University of Ghana as we speak, and Valley View University, and is also director of programs at Project at Banwell Management and Consultancy Services. Long profile, but a very small young man here. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, my brother.
So this tall thing, when we are reading it, how do you feel? You struggled for it.
I fought for it.
You fought for it.
Yes.
Now
I nailed myself through the struggle.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So Dr. Kweku Qatar will be my guest for the next hour. Now, Director Programs and Projects at Banwell Management and Consultancy Services. What really is Banwell? Because for many, this appears new, but I know it's been in the system for some time.
Banwell is a registered company by the Registrar General Department. Has objectives of promoting education, development, also to solve dispute problems between employer and employee relation, also to give economic advice services, and also economic impact analysis of projects. And we believe that as time goes on, private sector development is one of the initiatives. I saw the future of Ghana, and I said, look, let me pull this up so that I can be training people, giving them capacity to develop themselves and be able to meet the job market.
Okay, so now let's set the preamble. Today, Bloomberg has been in the news.
Yeah.
And it's painting a gloomy picture about our country. Now, the reason why we are tying in the Bloomberg report, which suggests that Ghana may be going back to the IMF. You remember after the 2016 elections, there was a conversation about Ghana went to the IMF, and IMF had decided that there should be a freeze on employment so that the country can get its foot right to move the economy back into gear. And now Bloomberg is painting that gloomy picture. And it ties into the recent statement by the finance minister suggesting that, look, the economy may not be able to absorb as many people as possible who are yearning to get white-collar jobs under government sector. Now, the IMF is saying that Ghana's credit risk premium soared in the highest since the start of COVID-19 pandemic ahead of next month's budget. Now, there's something very instructive here. It says, do they, and they are referring to Ghana, do they still have access to the Eurobond market at these levels? Could they issue one at a reasonable price? And an economics and fixed income strategist at First Bank, that's First Rand Bank in Johannesburg, is saying a big no. And it's Neville Madbinga. Now, when you hear this and you juxtapose this with the narrative from the finance minister, which situates in where we find ourselves now, from your background, how do you see it?
Well, the pointer of what Bloomberg has come out with in cooperation with what IMF is talking about, from the time that we get into the COVID problem, and the worldwide is saying it, I know Africa is going to face a lot of
challenges.
But the reason, though we are treating the topic of unemployment, you realize that this debt issue, as is one of the indicators that will slow down investor promotion as industries are concerned. So if you leave it out without talking about it, and I'm happy you brought it in, if you leave it out without bringing it on board for us to digest on it, the public will not be educated enough to be able to understand why Bloomberg and IMF is pointing those issues to us. It is very, very important, because if a country has a bad debt, it will be difficult for cooperation between investors, domestic investors and foreign investors, to be able to pool their resources together to establish industries, build up firms, go into private-public partnership to be able to build a country. So that one, we are on the right path, and you hit right on the nail of what I want to talk about this evening. We are seeing the bad part of excessive borrowing, and it trickles down to all the banks. The banks have exhausted almost 80% of what we call public instruments and bonds, euro bonds, and whatever you talk about. It's inclusive. If you look at it critically, you realize that borrowing at this huge level without repositioning Ghana not to eat into the debt issues, it's really serious.
Well, we won't go deeper into this, because this is another area which needs some more time to talk about, delve into. But now we are looking at unemployment issues. And first of all, do we have employable Ghanaians, or the situation and trends are making it a bit more difficult? Now, let me try to paraphrase this question even more, paraphrase it better for you to address as far as we are concerned. We have technology competing with jobs. We have existing jobs which appear to be traditional, and then we have a system government says is choked. And then we live in a part of the world where majority depend on government for survival rather than the private sector. From the observation you have made over the period, where would you situate where we are, and if you think there is hope?
My brother, the situation we are finding ourselves in has accumulated all over the years. If we talk about 100,000 graduates coming out of the university, and it's only 10% that are getting job into either private sector or public sector, I'm telling you, 90% of them are still searching for the job. There is a bottom line of employable skills, both on skill, and then skillful people have the opportunity to be employed in Ghana here. But what do we see over the year? There's a stretch on the existing organizations or industries that are employing, especially the government sector. We need to bar out of the government sector employment and create opportunity for private-public partnership and do diversification of institutions that can be factories. For example, the Aboso Grass factory is lying in the bush. We have to revamp it and get people employed in those places. The Kwalugu tomato factory is still lying there. The Commander factory is still lying there. If these companies could be revamped and being encouraged to come to a limelight where they can employ 20,000, 30,000 people, you can imagine the number that will reduce. I'll give you an example of diamond cement in Aflao. For example, I've always cited this example because in Ketusa, they had with the border, you realize that there were in the past there were criminals and other things that are happening, border crossing here and there. Just one factory is employing over 10,000 people and has reduced.
That's along the value chain.
And along the value chain.
You will explain further, but let me add some points here so that I can give you space to speak to the issue. Now, you realize that in the government sector, teaching, health, energy, security, and services appear to be where majority of those the finance minister perhaps is saying that has choked the system, i.e. in terms of payments, Then you realize that our institutions are training all categories of people.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about those who have professional skills, from legislators to managers to professionals to technicians, clerical support services, and it goes on, craft and related traders and plant machine operators, elementary occupations, etc. And so that's a tall list.
Yeah.
Are we saying that from what we have been saying over the years, the country has just failed in creating the opportunities, or there's something beyond any government at any time to solve our problems?
There's something beyond that. For example, the training institutions, like educational institutions, our educational institutions, are now improving their research and innovation base, coupled with what industry is doing, including government institutions. But is the government buying into this research? They are not buying into the research.
What does that mean?
It means that if there is a technological development, for example, somebody has been able to do an automobile, wanted to build an automobile industry. Take Qatar, for example. We need to engage that gentleman enough to be able to promote the local products and services. That will help government to be able to employ a lot of people. That will let the private sector employ a lot of people. That will expand the tax base. Mind you, I deeply had gone into research to understand that even the taxes on those businesses, taxes on those institutions that will give productivity to the country are overtaxed, so they cannot break even to even employ these young men to feed the industry. And that is also another very difficult thing that the government would have to look at. When we have to move forward, we need to look at these steps, the taxes. We also need to look at training, innovation, research, to be able to put people in the position that any employable person could have a job to do by even on his own, or by being employed by a factory or institution. That is, even the government institutions that you mentioned so far, they're not becoming innovative. Mind you, let me give you an example. Check the history of Goil. When the branding of Goil changed in the previous government, you see the face of Goil being patronized now more than it used to be. That should tell you that they have marketed themselves and branded themselves and bring a new innovation and style that has changed the face of Goil. At first, I don't buy fuel in Goil. But because of the branding and the way they treat you now, I go in there. Then it employs a lot of people.
Are you suggesting that the government institutions we have, which perhaps appear to be choked,
yes,
could be a bit more innovative to create more opportunities?
And then decentralize.
Can you break it down further? And I'm using the word break it down further because if you look at all the data available, majority of those employed in the government sector are into agriculture, industry, or services. Services, i.e. those in the teaching profession or in the security agencies and so on. That's where a chunk find themselves, or maybe the health services and so on. Now, some say that beyond what the private sector could do, there's more room there for government to create those opportunities. One school of thought is that while government may consider building more hospitals or more schools or building more roads or expanding the ports, which will get related jobs for different professionals along the line, it may not be sustainable because technology will compete with potential for those who grab jobs.
Why do we have the Kofi and ITC centers and all over? We have those things to capacitate the people that we are training for future merging technology with industry. Am I correct? If that is the case, then it's the seriousness of government pushing this agenda forward. Sometimes institutions are there, but the practical aspect of implementation becomes a problem. And if we are not taking the bull by the horn by practicing what we have learned, what we want to do, and astutely take them to the next level of implementation and getting success out of it, getting outcomes out of it, getting goods out of it, getting services out of it, then my brother, I'm sure that we are not doing the right thing. Because I tell you honestly, that in the chain of services and goods, it is not only sitting in the office that makes it productive. You will employ people through the chain up to the last person, a laborer or whoever you call it, driver or whatever. There must be branding. We need to brand the kind of services we render and product we produce for it to have that niche to sell itself in the world market.
But you'd also admit that part of the problem appears to have been created by us. One, if you look at the agriculture sector, for example,
yes,
which is one of the gray areas where any government would want to go into. The rhetoric is there, the pledge is there appears to be commitment, but they will tell you there's a lot of wastage that goes on. Beyond that, patronage is what creates the market.
Yes.
So while we are not adding value, there's the fear that even when you add value, you and I, ordinary Ghanaians, have not been conscientized to patronize them, and therefore most of these areas eventually fold up and the potential opportunity for job creation will be lost.
That is why there must be a link between research, teaching, industry, and the field itself. Because what you impart from the classroom is what the students or the graduates will take to their field of knowledge by practicing and implementing. I always tell my students that I'm not doing this as a public speaker because I just want to make name, but I want to impart knowledge back to the people who have helped me to reach where I am. I mean, it is clear that you cannot hold on to knowledge and then keep it under your pillow and it will work. You need to put it into practice. The more you put it into practice, the more you implement it, the more you get some results, the more you get the corrections done, the more you become an expert in that field. So you can't learn and then just put it under the pillow. You need to put it into practice. For example, I told you some time ago that when we went into HIPIC, I just tried a little bit of a garden, a backyard garden in my own house. Make some pepper, onion, that kind of thing. I don't go out to buy anything, but what I produce within 1 month, 2 months, I was harvesting my own product.
And you could sell some.
I could even sell some. I could even dash some to the community where I live. So it tells me that Ghana, we have everything that we can grow, till the soil and grow it. So I have the mind now to go into a bigger production sector, in agricultural sector, by creating an animal husbandry, creating a farm, produce maize and cassava to feed the animals. So it tells me a clear way to go if things are not going on well, to till the soil. So I practically felt it. That is a result-oriented approach to whatever we have learned in the classroom.
No, so that result-oriented approach brings into question what really is the focus towards achieving or resolving this problem. It has been with us for decades.
Yeah.
Employment challenges.
Yeah.
Now, when you listen to the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, and you listen to what others have said in the past, including the Trades Union Congress, which is speaking to an issue, employment biggest challenges need swift action. We'll be delving into what the TUC is saying and the recommendations it is making. But you realize that they all move towards one issue, that let us train the students today to appreciate the need to grow up to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I sit here, and if I reflect on the kind of education I was privileged to go through, I don't think it has conditioned me to make myself an entrepreneur today, unless I want to copy somebody I know who perhaps will guide me. And it is reflective of the thousands of the young people who are coming out on daily basis, as you quoted from the World Bank data, which says about 100,000 graduates come out every year. And these graduates, JHS students, pre-primary school students, those who go to middle school or the secondary school, those who finish and stop along the line, all these people are along the chain.
Yes, that's why I told you that I'm doing a kind of retraining and capacity building for people. Sometimes we may not have the time enough in school to be able to give people the skill of understanding that you need to put what you have learned into practice. Some people don't know where to start from, or when to start and how to start. I tell you, we have to bridge that gap and let people understand that whatever you have learned in school, it gives you a broad mind of what you should understand in the world of today. Mm-hmm. But coming to the world itself, there are certain things that you are creative about, which is called creating a future of knowledge for yourself. If you want to really go individually, you have the potential in you that you need to identify. How do you identify that potential? You might be thinking about doing something which you zealously had a feeling about. Get somebody to profile it for you, who is an expert in that area, coach you and mentor you to get the feeling. Immediately you get a practical feeling of it, you can easily become your own.
Does this suggest that our institutions from the scratch are not grooming our future leaders to appreciate this naturally? And so they have to finish all the process and go through.
Yes, I think that's part of the problem, the whole in Ghana and in Africa. So now institutions who wants to achieve the 2030 strategic targets for developing their citizenry to match up to the entrepreneurial development across the globe are now putting strategic management plans in place that will strengthen the implementation position of what they have learned and what they want to achieve, so that they can generate their own resources like revenue to be able to create wealth for themselves. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you that the Sustainable Development Goal chapters has come out now, has given power to countries that train your people to meet that gap that was left, so that we can be able to produce and create wealth for themselves. And I tell you, the young men who are in this country today have greater opportunity to abolish what was happening in the past, or to curtail what was happening in the past, where we come out of school, we want a white-collar job. It is not possible. When we come to the courses of the slides,
we'll look at that, because you did, when I was researching and trying to dig into your background, I realized that you did a recent presentation, the bumps of unemployment on the Ghanaian economy, the macroeconomic factor. It is very instructive, but I've put together a few questions under what I named unemployment crisis. Now, these come with lots of questions. For example, if you go to some parts of the world, people are paid on hourly basis. So I can come to Tvxyz, work for 4 hours, I become productive within the period, and then I move on to another place where my services will be more relevant. But we have a model where you go to work at 8 o'clock, you stay till 5 p.m., and sometimes half of the 8 hours you are spending at work, you are doing nothing.
Unproductive.
And then we are spending so much money to pay you. I remember during the 2020 elections, one of the political parties, i.e. the former president, was suggesting that there will be a 24-hour economy where people work for a period, they go to sleep. While they are sleeping, that opportunity is created for another group. So I want us to reflect on the unemployment crisis with a lot of questions I've asked. Just reflect on these questions. When I come back, Dr. Qatar will move to the screen, and I'll be questioning him on some of the presentations he has made on employment or unemployment issues with reference to the size of an economy and what governments can do to the private sector to create that engine. Let's watch this. So those are interesting questions. The program is Ideas Exchange, and I believe that some of you out there would wish that I create opportunity for you to also share your thoughts. Maybe today I'll try it at the tail end of the program, the last 5 minutes, to see what you might want to say to add to this conversation. Subsequently, we'll create a better space for you. Now, there are some questions that I'm sure you must have put down. It says in many countries, there have been an increase in hourly paid employment. What do you think about this? Should we be considering that? It says, what do you prefer, to be paid by the hour or paid a fixed salary, and why? Would you choose to work part-time, or what will this suit you? And one question that is of interest to me says, and it says, is self-employment on the increase in our part of the world, and does it appeal to you? Look, there were so many questions.
Yes.
Now, any one or two brief comment, then we'll move to your presentation, where I will delve into some of the things you found.
Depending on the kind of depending on what you want to do in future. For instance, if I'm a lecturer, but I found it very interesting to have my private business, or have a private business that I can try as much as possible to impart other things, other knowledge into other people, also help other people to grow their businesses. It is a choice. If you find it very wise to do that, then it's going to help you in one way or the other to support your business and to support your family. So that whatever you are doing, if there's the inflows, the cash flows are low, then you can use the hourly works to balance it. Depending on the orientation you have, that you want to be a banker, you can't work in the bank and be going back and forth hourly basis, because the most important thing is that the bank's environment of business is different from the environment of working in a factory. It's different. So the factory, maybe people can go to work for 4 hours, 3 hours, and go and come. So that is it. And the next thing we have to know is that before you even start taking these decisions, do consultations, talk to somebody. Then you can understand
and create a better model. But you'd realize that while we identify the agri sector, the construction sector, because in our part of the world, we need a lot of facilities. So that is an area where any government with an interest in expanding the economy through construction can create opportunities for people. But it may be for a period.
It may be for a period.
Now, agriculture, maybe the services, health, teaching, like security, and so on, these are there. And so government will look at that. But would you recommend that the model where we pay people by wages, so we create other opportunities for some others who may be waiting to get jobs? For example, if you look at the 100,000 which pass out from our tertiary institutions, so only 10% getting the opportunity, would it work in a part of the world?
Because of the population increase. We need to understand that time is coming where people have to work hourly basis as well, because you cannot all be employed at the same place at the same time. And look at what is happening in the ministries, what is happening in government agencies, where the desk is not even there for people to sit and work. So we have to start thinking about, sharing the time for people to be able to get something, to get some income to feed their family.
Okay, now, so Dr. Qatar is, Dr. Julius Kweku Qatar is a consultant, fellow chartered economist, and a lecturer. I read a little about his profile, and he gave us an insight into what he does, training, and of course, he's also a trainer of trainers. Now, he did some presentation. I want us to move to page 6 of that presentation, which talks about the causes of employment. The causes of unemployment, you saw it differently.
Yes.
Now, it is there with us. Can you walk us into some of the things you identified and explain it further for us?
You can see that we have causes of employment. This is a general cause of employment. We have a frictional unemployment, structural unemployment, classic or real wage unemployment, voluntary unemployment, demand deficient or classical unemployment. The first one, frictional unemployment, is where it's caused by the time where people take to move between one job to the other.
If you can take, and I'm doing this purposefully, so that if you can take your time for those watching us to appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because this conversation is supposed to be solution driven.
Yeah.
So while we look into the causes you have in your explanation, it will not be bad if you give us some examples that can really help us to understand.
For instance, a gentleman or some group of students who have finished University of Ghana in 2015 were looking for a job. For the past 4 years or the 5 years, they were still looking for a job. Running around, borrowing money to go around is a cost. And as they move around, they can't get a job. They apply, they call them for interviews. Some are not there, some are there, but the pay is not good. Looking at where they are staying and the distance to the factory or whatever. These are frictional unemployment. Structural unemployment. You got an employment. You see that it's structured in a way that today you got a job, tomorrow you don't have a job.
Is that common in Ghana?
For instance, take the construction sector, where government starts a construction, another government comes, abrogate the contract, say they are auditing. All these people go.
Where would you place, because the Trade Union Congress makes reference to that in its proposal for the 2022 budget.
Yeah.
And it says, for example, that it is concerned about the position paper it has submitted to the government in the area of job creation. It is urging government to consider reviewing the various public sector employment programs, such as Youth Employment Agency, the Nation Builders Corps, that's NAPCO, and evaluate the efficiencies of its models to ensure value for money.
Yes, I have a problem with that. Right from the word go, we are changing names for institutions which we are not supposed to do. The fact is that we need to give logistics to those institutions to breed the capacity of the youth, so that at the end of the day, these people will have the credibility, adequacy, efficiency to be able to deliver and implement whatever they have learned. It is key and very important. Not the changing of names of institutions. I think it's waste of time, waste of paper and all that. So we need to be serious as a country where to go in terms of youth unemployment.
Okay, so Dr. Carter, you took us to the structural unemployment. Let's run through
the real wages unemployment is the salary-based problem. Take it for instance. Somebody who has is having 12 cedis as a pay. If you are staying in Tema, a day, transportation from Tema to Accra, Canadian industrial area, would you be able to feed on 12 cedis as a minimum wage, 12.85?
If that's the value the institution is placing on you, what's the problem?
The problem is that how to manage that transportation from there and your food and everything. How would you manage it? Because you look at the minimum wage, it is serious.
So what does it mean? So
it means that
you are employed but you are not employed.
You are employed but you are not employed. Your earnings, your savings are not increasing. So what will happen is that if you are fast, you have to look for alternative job to add to that, to save your situation. Then the demand deficient. For example, there are certain jobs, the job is there, but the quality of the skill the person would have to get a job is not there.
Like the oil and gas sector, where there's a lot of capacity building.
But the people and the Ghanaians are not ready at this time to understand where the oil and gas business is going. So if you look at
so the next slide, for example, talks about I see a diagram where you are looking at causes of unemployment, demand deficiency, then supply side, and so on and so forth. Now, in 2 minutes, can you walk us through that particular slide where these diagrams are?
Yeah.
I'm making reference to, there's a page 7 of the document.
Yes, page 7.
Right.
One way we say causes of unemployment, for the traditional unemployment situations, there is something beautiful about it. We have a demand and supply side of the labor force. It is the labor force that we are talking about. What it means is that in Ghana we have enough labor force to be able to meet industry, but there is short supply of industries. So what happens? There is unemployment, but there are no industries. There are no creative jobs. So what will happen is that people will be less paid because there is too much number of labor force to feed the industry.
Now,
that's simple. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm sure you know Kofi Wayo.
Yes.
Kofi Wayo will say all this big English. What we need is jobs. So with all this big English, what does it mean to me? The ordinary Ghanaian watching you, the government official watching you.
Yeah.
We want jobs. So what are some of the recommendations, for example, you want to look at, because now you are looking at the courses.
Strategically, government and private businessmen who has the capacity, the financial muscle, should please come together and build factories. I was happy when the time was coming for the current government to come into power with a vision of one district, one factory. It's super on paper. But today, if that had been done within the 5 years that we are on now, imagine we are building with the debt we have now, or even with the jet that we want to buy. If we set our priority right, we are using over 100 and something million US dollars, which is about 800 billion Ghana cedis. If you divide that by 216, each district will have about 4 industries. And when we have 4 industries in each district, we are going to spend about 2 billion Ghana cedis for each for the 4 industries. How many people will be employed? So if you look at this calculation alone, we'll tell you that within these 5 years, if every year we are building industries like that, and it's actually suitable for the resources that are available, there will not be geographical mobility of people from urban, rural areas to the urban centers.
We'll go back to your slide, but take a seat while we continue the conversation. Now, one other observation I'm making is about policy and implementation. For example, there's a fine model called the school feeding program. And so the narrative from President Kufuor's days was that every district will grow what the children will eat, from poultry products to farm produce that is used to prepare food for them. We have expanded it, but today we understand that the farmers in the various districts who are supposed to plant the maize or the vegetables or grow the poultry so that we can get the eggs and so on. Even recently, government was talking about 1 chocolate per child in the school and so on. We are not tapping into that, and it is not becoming attractive or competitive for the average Ghanaian to go into farming, for example. If you travel from Accra towards Sogakope or the Adan area, 15 years ago, it used to be open land and people were cultivating all kinds of crops. Today, housing has taken it and people have just fenced it, and that policy didn't drive the opportunity for people to do urban farming. So is it about policy failure or perhaps implementation failure?
It's both. I see it as both, because first of all, the school feeding program, some opportunities where it should be given to, level of opportunity should be given to the community, the people living in the community, because they know their problem and they know how they will handle the issues. When contracts are given to somebody like me in Accra to go and implement school feeding program in Amfoga, how would I be able to do it? It means that I'm going to buy something, all the things from Accra. Talk about the chocolate, I'll buy it from Accra. So the man in the village producing cocoa or producing something will not be able to be encouraged to produce a finished product of cocoa to give to his own people. For example, Gary, he will not produce it in the village. Plus, the person who has the contract in the district could go and tell the farmers that, look, when you harvest your cassava, try to turn it to Gary for me to buy and feed the school people. So there's the priority, the policy plan is good, but the implementation of the policy is a failure. Because if that opportunity is given to the people of the area, decentralized enough for the people to handle themselves, they would have known what to do. We are not capacitating our people.
Now, this comment,
yes,
which I saw and I decided to put together, says, if you do not know where to start, where do you begin? The issues of graduate unemployment basically is in the twofold perspective: lack of creativity being the problem and solving skills orientation. Again, this one says critical thinking is what is missing in our educational concept. Memorize for assessment, hence graduates are taught to be theoretical rather than problem-based approach and learning outcomes. I know you have some solutions in the presentations you made. Yeah. We'll share that and then you walk us through it. But as we speak, the TUC says government must do some work towards solving this problem. Every Ghanaian accepts the fact that, look, government cannot employ all. If you were advising policy formulators, if you were speaking to parliament, government today, even those in opposition, what strong recommendations will you make to attempting to solve this unemployment crisis?
The first recommendation I'll make is building the link between education and industry. The link between education and industry, because it is the basis of where research is coming from, education, innovation is coming from. That's where we train the students. But also, let me keep you reminding that the very serious issues that I have about our students we are training from the schools is that some feel reluctant to read when they are in school. They want to pass their exam. They are hesitant to pass their exams.
What does it mean?
It means that some of them are in a hurry to complete the school quickly.
So they come out not ripe enough.
Look, if you go to University of Ghana, when I had orientation University of Ghana as a student, I'm told that read everything on campus. What it means is that there is counseling and guidance session in the university. There are critical thinking courses that helps you to understand your subject matter, which are taught in the university. But the fact of the matter is that students these days are in hurry to complete the university, get their certificate, because they were assured by their uncle to get employed quickly.
Some will say you are creating it because your job is to groom them, your job is to tailor them to be able to fix the problems.
That's the preaching some of us are doing. And some of the lecturers and professors are also doing it. But if you are feeding a child with an information and the child is not ready to take it up and practice it, how will they be able to do?
You see,
let me tell you something. Let me add something to it. When I was in University of Ghana, even though it is not permitted to teach on Lagos campus, somehow, some way, I've been teaching my colleagues. That gives me a little bit of what we call income, which I can assure you that I have even saved up to 10 cities in a Barclays bank account in Lagos, accumulating that money throughout the whole year. And it's kind of money for me.
But you see, Dr. Qatar,
you understand me? See, it depends on the person.
We have agreed since the Fourth Republic started that the private sector is the engine of growth.
Yes.
And almost year on,
we are still saying.
At May Day celebrations, if you listen to labor unions, you listen to statements by our presidents, our governments over the years, they create the impression that they are making it softer for the private sector to thrive. Whenever they travel outside the country, they tell the international community, businesses outside, that that is what we are doing. Even in the proposition by the Trade Union Congress, where they talk about how do you call it, the background, the integration of the private and then the other sectors into government blueprints, you would realize that the private sector appears to be milking opportunities that governments have created. But even though budget statement will say we'll give special concessions to companies that will employ more. It is not happening. And so the private sector is not really addressing our problem, but they are profiteering from the tax rebate and so on. And so we come back to square one, government losing, jobs are not being created in the numbers, and we are not going far. How do we address that problem?
See, I think the policy makers who make the policy and come out at Parliament as a bill and all that, please, there's a difference between saying that this is workable. People who are put in those positions take their chronics to go in for those loans. Take it, for instance, the Maslock facility. Take it, for instance, the COVID-19 pandemic that happened. Small-scale businesses,
relief packages that were given to the NBSSI to create opportunity to help businesses to revive.
Who are the people who benefit from it? You see chronics of political parties going in for it. And the right people who are supposed to go in for it, when they apply, they don't get it.
So politics is a problem.
Politics is a problem.
So one of the major challenges we have.
Yes. Because even factories that are built by private sector, most of them are built by chronics of political parties where they are giving a tax rebate, but they are only interested in employing people who that belong to the party, where expertise are thrown out of the industry. So it's also a challenge. Now, we need to move away from those things.
Okay, so now we have barely 4 minutes left. Yeah. And so I want us to go to some of your slides. 14, 15, and 16 talk about what you see as solutions. Now, while you get ready to move there, to walk us through what you have put together, the Trade Union Congress, for example, made reference to opportunities that government can create. And it says that it is proposing a productivity week to be marked every year to bring all social partners together to highlight on issues on productivity. Again, it also makes reference to the need for government to be fair enough in creating opportunities for all in areas where government can still absorb, i.e. security, teaching, nursing, and so on.
What does it mean by productivity week?
So while you do the presentation, I would want you to go to the screen. We don't have much time, so that
yes, the productivity week we are talking about is just emphasizing the fact that we need an industrial revolution, which is an example of the one district, one factory, where we need to build more industries in partnership with private and government.
Is that is happening, or it is not happening the way you want it?
It's really not happening the way I think about it, because if you are going to be part, government creating an enabling environment, it should be a full enabling environment for private sector to drive the economy, but not government having hands in the affairs of the businesses, where taxes are being increased obnoxiously. I mean, it's very high.
Now, I see in the solution importance to align formal education programs and skills development initiatives. We have tried to address that in your earlier submission.
Yes. So
now, partner with the private sector. It says such as involving employers in the design of training, curricula, and introducing certifications for occupational standards in order to adapt to the future.
This happens when we have the first president of this country, where the 7-year development
plan.
Yes, linking industry with linking education with industry straight away. You know, the aluminium company Kweku, they have trained people straight away from school to be able to occupy some positions like that. So it's possible we can.
Sugar factories.
Yes, the sugar factory and so on. So it's possible we can do that today. It is not far from doing it. We can do it.
But 15 years ago, when I was a student, the narrative at that time was industry must be part of curriculum development so that internship would not be an issue.
Yes.
So that the students
that's how it's supposed
who go
to be.
there can easily graduate into becoming permanent staff.
That's what I'm referring to.
Right.
Because if you see, for instance, I don't know about other universities, but if you look at University of Ghana engineering department, you realize that the training of pilots and Air Force, you see the plane over there. It means that there's something happening there.
But you remember that, Doc, we'll try to paraphrase this in the next 2 minutes and then we wrap up.
Yeah.
When the GSS concept started, they said the economy is moving towards technology, skills training, and that's what we need. We saw that, and just some few years ago, we saw technical education, for example, and we said it was going to create us. But the people passing through our technical institutions, just as we started from them, catching them young from infancy, don't appear to have the orientation towards the solutions we want to find.
That's why the gap between industry and educational institutions supposed to be more vibrant. We need that collaboration. CSR, other institutions, other innovative institutions, scientific institutions must be linked to industry. That's what will happen before we can expand. So when private sector is going into creation of industries, they are already having people to feed those industries. So it is that gap we have to bridge. It's easy to do.
Now,
it's easy to do. It's not that we can't do it. We've done it before.
In the 2021 budget, for example, there is this Obatampa project. So much money, over 100 million, and so has been devoted to it. The agenda is to leverage with opportunities in the private sector. Now, while we wrap up, I want you to speak to your camera, and I want us to appreciate what you think must be a key issue government must factor even as we wait for the 2022 budget.
Well, as the minister has already said, that the youth, there's going to be consideration for youth development. But the fact is that we say it, but the way we have to do it is to, first of all, when we promulgate a policy, the policy plan or the requirement for such policy or such facility to be executed to the fullest must be known to the public. And there must be a way of educating the youth and the public by civic education, through Civic Education Commission, to be able to let people understand what you need to go in there for those resources. And when you go in, what are the outcomes the government is expecting from you? We should be able to have all those things.
So it's not about
translated in our local languages, so that people will understand it better, so that a lay person can also go in there.
You think that the youth of this country are ready for these adventurous areas?
They will be ready if only we give them a good insight about it.
Okay, so Dr. Qatar has been my guest, but while we are wrapping up, I want you to look at this 2015 labor force report. I'll just let you glance at it, and then I'll wrap up with Dr. Julius Kweku Qatar, who has been my guest today on what we described as no job syndrome, exploring the nexus. So just look on the screen and you see the 2015 labor force report, and I'll just run through. It says skilled agriculture, forestry and fishery workers constitute the largest occupational group, engaging that's about 3 million people currently employed as persons. And then it says about female constitute just about 2 million, which appear to be more in the services sector compared to agriculture, industry, and so on. And about 76.2% of the workforce in the urban localities are engaged in the service sector. And this is information that I want to share with you. Now, there are a few text messages. Let me just read about 3 of them, and I'll wrap up with Doc. The problem of unemployment can only be solved in 3 areas: youth in all sporting games, agriculture, manufacturing, and industrialization. It didn't come with a name. This one says, one of the reasons why school feeding program is the contract is always given to party members without capacity and resources. And this one is from Al Hassan Abdul Nashiru. What you are saying is it is not being managed properly. Now, this one says, is from Esuman in Accra. Mr. Eric, I like your program so much. Kudos to you and your guest. My guest is Dr. Qatar. He's a consultant, he's a trainer. I believe that you take advantage to tap into his expertise. Good evening. I really love the program. Dr. Qatar's presentation is understandable, from Benjamin Latte, Jamestown. So it's about time, Doc.
Yeah.
Everybody knows you are a consultant, you are a trainer. This is not the first time I'll bring you here. I'll be tapping into you free of charge.
Yeah.
But simple advice, 30 seconds to everybody.
Everybody must be inquisitive to know what exactly the budget is about and where the budget is leading us to. If you cannot read and understand, get an expert to read it, explain it in a local language for you to understand better, so that you know where government is putting their priority. Now, 2, we realize that when policies are made and government's supposed to open up to the public to give out those policies in various languages for people to understand, some chronics of political parties hijack those businesses that are for the youth. They should stop.
Okay. Dr. Julius Kweku Qatar is a consultant, fellow, chartered economist, and a lecturer. I believe you may have wished to be part of this conversation by way of phoning. I cannot do that today because my time is up. But this is not the end. We'll be doing more of ideas exchange. We'll meet again, but tomorrow between 2 and 3 o'clock. That's tomorrow afternoon. This program will be repeated. Join us at that time. Enjoy Dr. Qatar. And of course, next week at the same time, let's meet again for another ideas exchange. My name is Eric Ahianyo. See you and thank you for watching.